Welcome to the Dark Horse Chess Channel.
This video looks at the basic moves and strategy of the Smith-Mora Gambit.
The Smith-Mora Gambit can crush opponents who do not know how to play the opening correctly. Later videos will cover the opening more in depth.
After e4 and c5, the Smith-Mora Gambit is d4. A good way to decline the gambit is just play e6, and this will transpose into a French defense. After c takes d, white plays pawn to c3. An interesting move here is just to play d5. This is a sharp double-edged line. After d takes c3 and knight takes c3, this is the fully accepted Smith-Mora Gambit. At this point, white has a developed knight and an open queen file. White's bishops have great range. Black's bishops cannot move, no pieces have been developed, and the queen has limited mobility. The standard setup for white is to develop the knight to f3, the bishop goes to c4, the queen goes to e2, white castles, the rook goes to d1, and white tries to utilize an X-ray attack against the black queen. A common setup for black is to move the knight to c6, pawn to a6, pawn to e6, and then queen to c7. The pawns are moved to stop the white knight from harassing the queen at c7.
Defense number 1.
The Chicago defense.
The Chicago defense is d6, followed by bishop to c4, e6, knight to f3, knight to f6, castles, and a6. White is way ahead in development. There are two good continuations for white here. White could continue with the standard development by playing queen to e2, rook to d1 with the X-ray attack against the black queen. Or white could push e5 here, and after pawn takes pawn, queen takes queen, black has to take with the king, and black cannot castle. And then white has knight takes pawn, and the king will probably have to move back to defend the fork.
Defense number 2.
Classical formation.
The classical formation is knight to c6, knight to f3, d6, bishop to c4, a6, castled, and knight to f6. White can continue to play the standard development by going queen to e2, but this allows bishop to g4 with a nasty pin on the white queen. White can stop the pin by going h3, and then if black tries b5, white has this shot. Bishop takes pawn check. After king takes e7, the move here is e5. Black cannot take with knight because the knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and the queen is unguarded. If black takes with the pawn, white can still take with the knight, putting the king in check and attacking this knight. The knight cannot take it because again the queen would be unguarded. So the best move here would just to play d5, and then after pawn takes knight, pawn takes pawn, the black king is in danger. White is going to retake this pawn. This rook could come over and attack, and this bishop has some nice squares.
Defense number 3.
Fianchetto defense.
The Fianchetto defense is knight to c6, knight to f3, and then g6. After bishop to c4 and bishop to g7, white castles. And here, black can't really play knight to f6 because white can kick the knight with e5. So usually, black pushes d6. And now we have the bishop to g4 pin. After queen to e2, black can't play bishop to g4 because white has bishop takes pawn check, king takes bishop, knight to g5 check, king to f8, and white regains the piece with queen takes g4 with a big attack against the black king. At this point, black usually plays knight to f6, then after h3, black's light squared bishop has no good squares. So black usually castles at this point, and now after rook to d1, the x-ray attack against the black queen is in effect.
Defense number 4.
Conformation.
The conformation is e6, knight to f3, followed by a6. White has a huge development advantage. Black is playing as defensive as possible. Black is preparing to move his queen to c7, so he's stopping the harassing moves by the knight. A good move in this position is to go bishop to f4, and after knight to c6, white is going to control these dark squares for a long time.
Defense number 5.
Larson defense.
The Larson defense is knight to c6, knight to f3, e6, bishop to c4, a6, castles, queen to c7, queen to e2, and bishop to d6. A good move in this position is rook to e1, and this basically stops knight to f6 because of e5 forking the knight and bishop. Another good move here is rook to d1, and maybe later on going rook takes bishop and then controlling the dark squares.
Defense number 6.
Morphy defense.
The Morphy defense is knight to c6, knight to f3, e6, bishop to c4, and then bishop to c5. Black would like to launch a counterattack against white's weak f2 square. A good move in this position would be to move bishop to f4, and then after d6, white should castle and then proceed to play the standard setup with the attack down the middle.
This concludes part 1 of the Smith-Mora Gambit overview.
Thanks for watching.